Shabbat shalom. Okay. Praise God. It's good to be here today. I'd like to welcome each and every one of you. May God move in our hearts today. Speak to us today. This Torah portion is an amazing Torah portion that was just read, where God divorces himself from the nations because of the rebellion that had began in the garden and showed up several times up to that point. And he finally says, I'm done. And he scatters the people and he divorces them. And he takes one, Abraham. In the next chapter, it's Abraham because actually it's the next chapter in the Tower of Babel story. But the point is God has his own people. He's raised up from Abraham and Sarah, and it's Israel. That's his nation. The creator of the universe. He says, I have a nation. It's Israel. Israel is the nation of God. Always has been, always will be. From her comes the Messiah. From the Messiah comes the good news of salvation to the Jew first and also to the nations. Through the Jewish Messiah, he is going to regather the nations that he scattered. So I want you to understand, everything's connected with Israel. Everything flows through Israel and comes back into Israel. In fact, as the nations are gathered and saved, they're grafted into Israel to embrace the God of gods, the true God of true gods, the creator of the universe, and his ways. And his ways. This is amazing. When we understand the roots of our faith, man, it's a paradigm shift. It's a paradigm shift. So, today I want to talk about tabernacles, God's dwelling presence, part 2. You remember part 1? Well, if you don't, you can go upload it and watch it again. But get part 1, because we've already addressed some issues in part 1 related to the origins and the purpose and the meanings of this Holy Week. The Holy Week of the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. The Holy Week of the God of Israel. The Holy Week of the Messiah of Israel. Which holy days do you think he was keeping? The Roman ones or the ones that were given to Israel, right? We want to follow Jesus. You want to follow Jesus? Let's follow Jesus. Let's follow him in his ways. Let's live like he lived. Let's embrace the worship day he embraced on a weekly basis. Let's embrace the annual holy days that he embraced. Let's eat the foods he ate. Let's do the deeds he did. That's what it means to follow Jesus. So excited about this. Actually, I'm shocked that the majority of the followers of Jesus do not know about his holy days. Isn't that shocking? That his own followers don't know what his holy days are. That has always been beyond me. But I remember, because I was there at one point. You know, people say, I'd say, what are you doing? Oh, we're getting ready for Sukkot. I'm thinking, Sukkot. What is Sukkot? What are they talking about? They get that at the Goodwill store? Is it some kind of used coat? Yeah, I didn't know anything, right? Even the translation tabernacles didn't mean much to me, you know? I just thought, wow, this is like some new stuff. But as I read my Bible and studied about Jesus, the Jew from Nazareth, I began to understand, wow, what he did and how he lived is radically different than what I was told concerning who he is and how he lived. It's a big paradigm shift. So today I want to talk about tabernacles, God's dwelling presence. We celebrate the birth of Jesus in the harvest. We celebrate the birth of Jesus during the Holy Week of Sukkot, or tabernacles, rather than December 25th. In fact, the Holy Week of Sukkot and tabernacles is undeniably, we'll get into this later, it's undeniably the theological framework for Jesus' birth. It is in the season of Sukkot, it's in the season of tabernacles that he pitched a human tent and entered into it. And in that human tabernacle dwelt with us. This is why we celebrate his birth in the fall as the initial fulfillment of the Holy Week of Tabernacles. And this is why we build and decorate little tabernacles rather than waiting for the timing of the birth of the false Messiah on December 25th, along with all the pagan mixtures. Can I even say this? You know, we're just getting into a day and an age where you just can't say anything. You know, there's so much pushback, and everyone's so sensitive. You know, I think they just passed a law. I mean, they're making laws so that you if you speak in public and even voice your difference of opinion, you're not doing anything. You're not hurting anybody. You're not discriminating against anybody. But the fact that you take a different view than the government, they're going to actually penalize you in the civil realm. I could talk about that, but let's not get too political today. Don't get me off track. We are saved by grace through faith in the Messiah. It's not by works. We're not saved by what holy days we keep. We're not saved by what foods we keep. No, it's not a salvation issue. We're saved by grace through faith. But now that we're saved, now that we are the children of God, should we not walk in a manner worthy of that? Should our walk not be commensurate with the grace by which we are saved? So these issues are matters of sanctification, matters of holiness, matters for how we live our life. They're not the basis of how we get saved. We do them because we are saved. We do this. I want to be a follower of Jesus now so I can be saved. I'm a follower of Jesus because he saved me. Now I follow him. I want to learn about him. I'm as saved as I was as a new babe to this very day. So, a lot of pagan mixtures concerning the syncretization of God's holy days with the Roman holy days. We want to separate that. We want to make a call for reform, for coming back to the ways of God. Again, not to be saved, but because we are saved. So, tabernacles, God's dwelling presence with us. I hope when you have a chance, you post some of these teachings on your Facebook, on your social media. Get them out there. Get them out there. Share the truth. The truth matters. Now, I know in today's culture, people are saying, no, truth is relative. You know, everyone has their own truth. There's no absolute truths. And so keep your truth to yourself. And let's just show some love towards one another. That's kind of what's being said, right? But does the truth really matter? Is there objective truth, and does it matter? Now, I know you don't want to mess up your Facebook, but you can do like some of us, create another Facebook, and then you can say all the stuff you want to say there, and then keep your other one family-friendly and so forth, you know. If you want one that's just in your face and going to tell it like it is, go and check out Torah for Today, and you'll get some just straight-out truth. Okay? But yeah, I think we should be using social media to get the word out about who Jesus is, his glory, his good news, that we can be saved through faith in him, and also how to walk in his ways, what his ways are all about. And so I want to encourage you to do that. Jesus prayed to our Father in heaven. He said, concerning us, praying for us, the intercessor of our souls, praying on our behalf, says to the Father, sanctify them, set them apart, make them different than everyone else. Sanctify them in the truth. Your word is truth. Do you want the truth? Get in his word. Get in his word. It will offend you. It offends me. It shocks me from time to time. You know, but I love that. That's what we want. That's what we desire. We want the truth. Deep down inside, we want the truth. And then when we're presented with it, we want to, what? Slap it and rebuke it. And it's kind of a love-hate relationship. But it is what it is. The truth matters. Jesus prayed that we'd be sanctified, set apart by his word. Jesus didn't say blend in with the world, be like the world, make peace with the world. He says the world hated me without a cause, And if you follow me, it will hate you as well. Jesus, he states in another place, if you continue in my word, then you are truly disciples of mine. And you will know the truth, and the truth will make you free. The Matrix, remember the first Matrix? I think it's the trilogy. First Matrix with Neo and Trinity, and they used all the imagery that you find in the Bible and all the parallels to salvation. But it was interesting. Everyone's deluded. Everyone is under the power of the falsehood and the deception of the Matrix. And Neo comes with the truth, but no one wants the truth. You can either take the blue pill or the red pill, remember? It's amazing. Yeah, the whole world lies under the power of the evil one. And most of them don't care to know the truth. They're satisfied. They're at ease. They've made peace with deception. But there's a few that will listen, a few that are hungry for the truth. And you and I are God's agents for bringing the truth. The truth matters. The truth will set you free. Now, it also will bring something else. Not just liberty, it'll bring you persecution. And none of us want that. But it does bring persecution. The world hates the truth and therefore hates those who embrace the truth or shares the truth or lives the truth. You're automatically, kind of a bullseye for the world if you embrace Jesus as the way, the truth, and the life. And if you embrace his ways, you will be shot down as well. The world hates him and hates his ways. There's a war between good and evil. It's been raging since the fall. It will continue until Jesus comes back, and no one is exempt. There's no neutral ground. You're either in alignment with the good or the evil. There is no neutrality here. Jesus said something that's so shocking, I almost don't want to read it. I know many of us struggle with this from time to time. It's probably our biggest challenge that we face. Matthew 10, 34 through 38. Should I shift gears and say something, just stuff that's nice, make you feel good, won't challenge you? Then be nice to me after I say these things. I have feelings too. Matthew 10, 34 through 38. Do not think that I came to bring peace on the earth. I did not come to bring peace, but a sword. For I came to set a man against his father, and a daughter against her mother, and a daughter-in-law against her mother-in-law, and a man's enemies will be the members of his own household. There's nothing more painful in terms of interpersonal relationships than family problems, than infighting in a family. Jesus said, because of me, families will split. Because of my ways, families will part ways. This is very disturbing when you think about it. He goes on to say, he who loves father or mother more than me is not worthy of me. Fathers or mothers that put pressure on their kids not to follow Jesus, not to choose Jesus, and that happens frequently, of course, within Jewish homes, for instance. Jesus is saying, look, if you want to honor your mother and father rather than follow me, you can do that. Because if they're more important than me, you're not even worthy of me. Anyway, if you love your father or mother more than me, you're not worthy of me. And he who loves a son or daughter more than me is not worthy of me. So you can fill in the blanks and put in whatever relationships you have with whoever you have in relationship to this passage. It's a big test for all of us. Then he goes on to say something even more significant, which is really the crux of what it means to follow Jesus. He who does not take his cross and follow after me is not worthy of me. Following Jesus will cost us everything. It is not easy to follow Jesus. It will cost us some of our dearest relationships, job opportunities. It will cost us everything. The world will beat you down. Your families will beat you down. Your neighbors will beat you down. And Jesus is saying, still want to sign up? That's your cross. That's what they did to me. And if you want to follow me, they're going to do it to you. And what they did to me, they will also do to you. So, follow me. Follow me to your own death, because that's where I'm going. They're going to take my life. So if you follow me, you get to die too. You know, all the apostles died horrible deaths, just like Jesus. Now, I know this is not the kind of sermon you want to use to try to get people to come in and follow Jesus. But that's what it means to follow him. That's the cost of discipleship. That's what it means to be a disciple. And I know that the message that we can be forgiven and reconciled with God is the antidote to the fear of losing our own lives. When we understand that we can be forgiven in him and one with him, we find our courage to say, yes, give me that cross. I will follow you. It is born in the grace of God and fueled by the Spirit of God. This is how we do it. This is how we do it. He who has found his life will lose it, and he who has lost his life for my sake will find it. I don't need to tell you that when there's family problems for following Jesus, how you can feel like, man, I just feel like I've lost my life itself. It feels so bad and so painful, and all this is just like, I can't do it. Yeah. So today I'm going to look at part two. In part two, I'm going to look at why we should be celebrating Yeshua's birth in the fall during this Holy Week rather than the last week of December. And I'm also going to discuss how to celebrate it in a manner that is in alignment with true worship rather than pagan mixtures, because truth matters. We're the people of God. This is what it means to follow the Messiah. So let me start with this statement. Is the theological setting of the birth of Jesus the fall holy days of Israel or the winter pagan holy days of Rome? What is the theological setting? Israel or Rome? This is very important for us to ask these questions. God says, if you want to worship me, you got to worship me in spirit and in truth. It matters to God how we worship him. God's holy days are important to him. He has a calendar. Which one are we going to follow? The calendar that the world has given us or his calendar? So I know this is kind of like negative and challenging, but I'll get down to some of the more positive aspects in a few moments. Let me start with December 25th. December 25th and the birth of Rome's sun god, Mithra. Here's some established facts. Number one, the Emperor Aurelian established the festival of the birth of the unconquered sun on December 25th in the year 274 AD. This is when Rome itself officially sanctioned this as the festival of the birth of the unconquered sun. This was the year. This is where it ends up as an actual calendar date of the Roman Empire, that the empire itself, along with the emperors, basically enforce. Now, the sun cults of Rome existed much earlier than this and had their influence. In fact, by the 2nd century, they became so popular that Rome itself changed Sunday from the second day of the week and moved it up to the first day of the week in their calendar. So Rome early on is worshiping Saturn as the chief deity of the heavens, right? The sun cults come along and they're promoting the sun god, and they're saying that the sun is actually the strongest and greatest of the gods. And so popular were they, with so many followers, that even the emperors were drawn in. And so they decided, well, let's move the day of the sun, which was the second day of the week on the calendar, Rome's calendar. Let's move that over to the first day. Let's bump Saturn out and put in the sun god as our main chief god. And that happened, of course, by the 2nd century. For the Roman Empire, the sun god, the invincible sun god, was now their chief and highest god. In the 3rd century, the Emperor Aurelian officially established the festival of the birth of the unconquered sun to take place on December 25th. Now, the birth of Jesus, here's our next fact. The birth of Jesus was not officially celebrated by the church on the 25th of December until approximately 380 to 386. It's important to note this, because you're going to hear this over and over and over. What you're hearing every year on this is actually it was the church that embraced December 25th, and it influenced Rome to move their celebration of their sun god to merge with the 25th. It was the church that influenced Rome, not vice versa. Well, if you look into the facts of the matter, it's actually the other way around. Now think about this. The math is simple. The Roman pagans, their sun cults, and even their emperor were all celebrating the birth of their sun god on December 25th for 60 to 100 years, depending on the data. It's about 60 to 100 years earlier than when the church establishes the date of December 25th as the time when they would celebrate the birth of Jesus. In other words, it took approximately 100 years for the church to cave in and then adopt this pagan date for the celebration of Jesus' birth. This is what we call syncretism, where you take something else and merge it with the truth and mix it all together. This is syncretism at one of its highest levels. Now, the true Messiah would be more in alignment with the false Messiah of Rome from this point on. This is the natural outgrowth, by the way, of a church that abandons its Jewish roots and the Torah as a way of life. The church had done that early on. By the end of the 1st century, it was already well moved away from the Jewish people. It would divorce itself from not only the Jewish people, but the Torah itself. And then in the vacuum of trying to redefine what is holy, what is sacred, what it means to be sanctified, they had to come up and fill that with new stuff. And they chose Roman tradition, Roman culture, and syncretized that with what they understood so as to escape persecution. So who borrowed from who? The evidence is pretty conclusive. Roman Christians were influenced by their pagan Roman authorities and pagan culture to adopt the pagan date of December 25th as Jesus' birth, so as not to lose converts to the popular Roman sun cults, such as Mithraism. In other words, if you can't beat them, join them. The sun cults were accelerating. They were drawing people. They were even drawing Christians who now, unhinged from the Torah, it's like, well, what do we do now? People aren't going to quit celebrating holy days or holidays, right? No one lives in a vacuum. You're either going to do God's holy days or the one in your society. That's just the way it is. Since they rejected God's holy days, since they got rid of the Torah and distanced themselves from the Jewish people, all that was left was Roman tradition and culture. So they began to adopt what the Roman sun cults were presenting. Here's a quote from Professor Manfred Claus in his monumental work. It's entitled The Roman Cult of Mithras, The God and His Mysteries, translated by Richard Gordon. I put the ISBN number up there. Just keep that slide up there for a moment. You can get that actually at Amazon.com. What a fascinating, this is a monumental work, well respected by many, many conservative scholars. Encourage you to get that. But let me read this quote about Mithra. It says, light comes from the firmament. Mithras is the god of light, the new light which bursts forth each morning from the vault of heaven behind the mountains, and whose birthday is celebrated on December 25th. A late antique Syriac commentator describes this festival and correctly observes that it later developed into the birthday of Christ. It was, in fact, customary among the pagans to celebrate the festival of the sun's birthday on the 25th of December and to light bonfires in honor of the day. They even used to invite the Christian population to these rites. But when the teachers of the church realized that Christians were allowing themselves to take part, they decided to observe the feast of the true birth on the same day. You catch that? So they already established this. It's already taking place. They're watching this. It's permeated the Roman Empire. Everyone's celebrating the birth of Mithras on December 25th. And they're inviting the Christian communities that are sprinkled throughout the Roman Empire to come and participate. And of course, Christians are doing that because they don't know any better, because they've already rejected the Torah. They're not even aware anymore of the holy days that are all about the Messiah and celebrate the same things, but in a way that's holy and pure and spiritual. So the Christians are going. The church, they say, oh man, we're going to lose them. We're going to lose our people. So at that time, they then adopt December 25th as the birth date of Jesus in order to hold on to their converts. In other words, Christians now can celebrate on December 25th the birth of the Son, S-U-N or S-O-N, you choose. It doesn't matter. Everything's safe now. Is that amazing? That's how syncretism works. That's part of the motivation of why the church did that, by the way. So in summary, Mithra, the incarnation of Rome's sun god, was born on December 25th during the winter solstice. Some of the foundational worship practices among these pagan idolaters were decorating trees. Okay, this is just history. This is history. We are saved by grace. I used to decorate trees. I used to eat pig. I confess. I wasn't lost because I did that, and I wasn't saved because I did that. Now that I'm saved, though, I've learned there's a new way of living, a new way of worshiping, a new way of eating. And so I walk into these things as you've walked into these things. It's not legalism. People say, oh, that's legalism. You need to just ask people, when people say that's legalism, you need to just ask them, do you even know what that term means? Do you even know what legalism means? Legalism is a technical term. It's a theological term, and it's technical. It's set into concrete. It's been well defined for many centuries. This is legalism. The use of the law in order to gain merit for salvation. It is you and I trying to do good things and keep the law so that we could have enough merit at a given point to be saved. Remember when they asked an age green stamp books, you save your green stamps, and finally you fill up your book and you can go get stuff. Well, that's legalism. You do all these good works and you try to give this to God and say, well, look at all the things I did. Now you have to save me. That's legalism. No one here is talking about legalism. I'm saying we're already saved by grace through faith, not of works. But because I'm saved, because we are saved, we are called now to walk in the ways of God, to reflect His glory, His holiness, His ways. We are His people. We're no longer under Pharaoh. We're no longer under the emperors of Rome. We're to live a new way. We're to live in His way. So that's what this is all about. And so let me just share this, and you just wrestle with God with this. This is not a salvific issue, but it's certainly something you're going to wrestle with. So we have this whole issue of some of the foundational worship practices among pagan idolaters, and that would include decorating trees during the winter solstice and eating pig as part of the sacred festival meal. It's to this day, we're decorating trees at the winter solstice. To this day, the most popular choice of meat for the December 25th week is the Christmas ham. Ham is a Hebrew word for pig. Okay, well, maybe it's not Hebrew, but it is. It's pig, okay? That's what it is. It's a pig, okay? So So let me just point this out. I know this is an Old Testament passage. It's Isaiah 66 talking about the end of the age as we come into the white throne judgment. Notice what he says, characterizing the end of the age. For behold, the Lord will come with fire and with his chariots like a whirlwind to render his anger with fury, his rebuke with flames of fire. For by fire and by his sword will the Lord plead with all flesh, and the slain of the Lord shall be many. They that sanctify themselves, those that actually make themselves holy by these particular rituals, they that sanctify themselves and purify themselves in the gardens behind one tree, in the midst, eating swine's flesh and the abomination and the mouse shall be consumed together, saith the Lord. The pagans who refuse to humble themselves and confess their sins and embrace Yeshua as the Messiah, and they will be destroyed. And how are they pictured? How are they characterized? By pagan forms of worship and by eating pig and other abominations like mice, rats, bats. You can Google that. Many parts of the world actually consider these delicacies. Shrimp, lobster. Come on now. God says it's an abomination to eat that. It's nasty food. Don't eat. That's not meant to be eaten. Now, that's what's characterizing the pagans. If a Christian does that, he doesn't lose his salvation. The point is, a Christian shouldn't be doing that. Why would a Christian emulate the traditions of ancient pagan religions? God's saying, don't do that. You're my son, you're my daughter. You're just confusing people. Live in my ways. I want to drive people to me. If you live in the ways of the world, who's going to be drawn to me? You're no different from anybody else. So again, this is not a salvific issue, but it is an issue of sanctification. We have a responsibility as the people of God to emulate his ways, not the ways of the world. So in short, the date of December 25th, originally, and to this very day, marks the birth of Rome's false Messiah, Mithra, the incarnation of the invincible Son. And decorating green trees and eating honey-glazed baked ham and other abominations continue to be the foundational traditions in celebrating this originally pagan feast. Now, Christians in Rome were pretty much divorced from their Jewish roots starting in the end of the first century and culminating in the second century. This included abandoning the Torah as a way of life for the redeemed. No longer would they keep the Sabbath. That's slide 50. No longer would they keep the Sabbath. No longer would they keep the holy days of their Father in heaven. And no longer would they keep the dietary laws. In the end, in order to escape Roman persecution and to hold on to their converts, the church adopted Roman culture, custom, and traditions. However, they did not go so far as to abandon Yeshua and his teachings. They simply syncretized them with the false Messiah of Rome. They merged the date of Jesus' birth with the date of Mithra's birth. It was an easy and convenient way of blending in with the Roman Empire so as to escape persecution and fly under the radar, continuing to hold on to their converts. So I say, let's come back. Let's come back to a better way. Let's come back to the ancient paths, wherein lies the blessing. The fall holy days are, in fact, the revelation and glory of the birth of Jesus. John 1, in the beginning was the Word was with God, and the Word was God. He was in the beginning with God. This is a very Jewish text. In the beginning was the Word. In the Aramaic, John spoke Aramaic. In the beginning was Ha-Memra, the Word. In the beginning, this Ha-Memra, this word, is identified as the pre-incarnate Messiah. So I'm going to extrapolate from that. In the beginning was the Messiah, and the Messiah was with God, and the Messiah was God. He was in the beginning with God. Verse 14, and he, the Messiah, Hamemra, the Word became flesh. God became one of us. John 1:14, and dwelt among us. Dwelt. The Greek word for dwelt means to pitch a tent, to build a tabernacle to live in. God says, I'm going to build a tabernacle. I'm going to pitch a tent in human flesh and blood. I got a human sukkah. I'm going to live in a human tabernacle. This is the theology of tabernacles being fulfilled in the incarnation. When God says, I'm going to dwell in the midst of my people, he did in a new and living way. He became one of us. He was a living sukkah. He dwelt in human flesh and blood. This is the theological backdrop of the festival of Sukkot. It goes on to say, and we saw his glory, the glory as of the only begotten of the Father, full of grace and truth. So after nearly 2,000 years of passionate debate concerning the birth of Jesus, significant conservative scholarship is finally moving towards the fall festivals as the context of the birth of Jesus. It's happening. You can read about it. We still have a long ways to go, but let me tell you, the word's getting out. The truth is getting out. And you can see conservative Christian scholarship beginning to admit this for the first time. I have this tremendous podcast. It'll be up on our YouTube page and on our website. You can get the link there. But this is some of the fresh new research that has come out concerning the fall holy days as being the context of the birth of Jesus. You can go to the nakedbiblepodcast.com, and it's podcast number 138, Naked Bible Podcast. You can get that. We'll have that up as a link. So what is irrefutable is this. What is irrefutable is that the theological setting and Jewish framework of the birth of Jesus is being the fall holy days as found in the Torah. This is undeniable. No one argues this point anymore. It is already a settled fact theologically. The birth of Jesus is connected with tabernacles. It's the time that he came to tabernacle among us. His incarnation is the fulfillment of the promises made concerning tabernacles, that God would come and dwell with us. So this is when we celebrate the birth of Jesus. This is the theological setting. This is the Jewish framework. This is the cultural backdrop to the stories of his birth that you find in like Luke chapter 2. So the big question is how are we to celebrate the birth of Jesus? If we move it to the fall, what do? Put up a tree in the fall and decorate it? Baptize that ham 3 times and then cook it? How do we do this, right? Well, we need to move back to the fall, put it back in the fall holidays, and then these are the practices that we find in biblical literature concerning how we do this. We do it with the sukkah. We build a sukkah. We erect a sukkah, not a tree. We decorate a tabernacle, not a tree. Leviticus 23, 41 through 43. You shall thus celebrate it as a feast to the Lord for 7 days in the year. It shall be a perpetual statute throughout your generations. You shall celebrate it in the 7th month. Verse 42. You shall live in booths for 7 days. The word booths is tabernacles or sukkot. It's those little temporary shelters they used in the wilderness before they got to the promised land. You shall live in booths for 7 days. All the native born in Israel. It's a requirement for the native born in Israel. It's optional for us in Colorado where it gets cold early in the year, right? So that your generations may know that I had the sons of Israel live in booths when I brought them out from the land of Egypt. I am the Lord your God. I dwelt with you. I traveled with you. I sojourned with you. I was with you in the wilderness. I never forsook you. I've never forsaken you. I am with you, and I promise I'm going to get closer than ever before. And then he comes as one of us in the birth of Jesus, fulfilling his promise that he made to Israel back in the days of Moses. Now I'm going to show you 2 sukkahs real quick. We'll go to the next slide. Okay, who's that? Unbelievable. Okay. Rabbi Ben there. Okay. So that is our sukkah that we have in our community, but you just need basically 3 sides and a roof over the top, and that's kind of a pretty humble design that kind of represents what they had back in the wilderness experience. And of course, God had his big tabernacle, his big sukkah, that he traveled with us in our past with our ancestors. And our next one is right here. This is the one I made at home, and it has 3 sides and a top, and I've decorated it. I wish we could zoom in, but we can't. And I even have a top that pulls over, shade by day, and then put it back and see the stars at night. So, but you can Google sukkah or tabernacles, and you can get all the information you need to make something at your own home. I encourage you and your family, get the kids involved, everyone, hands-on, right? And build this for the glory of God, knowing that it represents Yeshua the Messiah, who came as a human tabernacle to fulfill the promise of God to dwell with us. Get a nativity scene. It's the season of his birth. I have a beautiful one, man. I love it. I put it up every year during the Festival of Tabernacles. Party, party, party. Week long. Invite people over. Go to parties. Eat, drink, sing, and dance. For Christ the Lord has been born. God has become one of us. He is dwelling with us now in the person of his Son, Jesus the Messiah. In Luke chapter 2, it says this, "And suddenly there appeared with an angel a multitude of heavenly hosts, praising God and saying to the shepherds in the field, 'Glory to God in the highest, and peace, and on earth peace among men with whom he is pleased.'" They shared with the shepherds that the long-awaited promise of God's willing presence had come in the birth of the Son of God in Bethlehem. It was an amazing celebration in the heavens and then later breaking out in the earth. So in closing, I want to say, let's celebrate the birth of Jesus like never before. Let's rejoice in what God has given to us in the babe born in Bethlehem. This is the season of his birth. Joy to the world, the Lord has come. Let earth receive her King, and let every heart prepare him room, and heaven and nature sing. So get your sukkahs ready. Get your little, what do they call those? Nativity scenes out. And get your foods. Get your party on. Get the kids involved. And know that in doing this, you have exalted the promise of God to dwell with us. You will be misunderstood and even marginalized for this. But always remember the third angel's proclamation in Revelation chapter 14. Here is encouragement for the steadfast endurance of the saints, God's people, those who habitually keep God's commandments and their faith in Jesus. Those who believe in Jesus and keep the commandments of God are God's people. They are blessed. They are happy. They are prosperous. They are to be admired. So be of good cheer. Stay the course. Your rewards will be immense in the age to come. Chag Sameach. Shabbat Shalom.
And Yahweh spoke to Moses, saying, "Speak to Aaron and his sons, saying, This is the way you shall bless the children of Israel. Say to them, May Yahweh bless you and keep you. May Yahweh make his face to shine upon you and be gracious to you. May Yahweh lift up his countenance upon you and give you peace. And we add, in the name of Yeshua, our Messiah, the Prince of Peace. So they shall put my name on the children of Israel, and I will bless them. Receive now the name of Yahweh. Yivorechecha Yahweh ve'ishmarecha Yaher Yahweh panav elecha ve'ichunecha Yisa Yahweh panav elecha Vayasem lecha shalom. B'Shem Yeshua HaMashiach, Sarah Shalom, Shabbat Shalom.